If something is certain, it is established beyond doubt as true. If something is ascertained, it is investigated and studied. A person cannot be truly certain of something unless they ascertain the truth of the subject of inquiry. The question is, what constitutes adequate investigation to justify claims of certainty? When I was a child, adequate investigation for my purposes came in one of two types: adult authority and my own eyes. If I saw something with my own eyes, then it was established as truth. The only thing more powerful than David Copperfield's magic in my mind was adults' proclamation of trickery and delusion. Seeing was believing for me, so adult authority had to intervene when I began to believe that a popular entertainer had real magical powers. I'm grateful that the adults in my life didn't allow me to go on being duped by a talented illusionist, but in retrospect, neither the perception of my own eyes nor adult authority turned out to be very good ways of ascertaining the truth of anything. They were just the only ways I knew at the time. I was trusting and unusually gullible, so it's surprising even to me that I've become such a skeptical thinker. I suspect that one of my few saving graces might have been genuine curiosity. I believed what I was told and what I saw firsthand, but I was so curious about the details of things that I often discovered lies and contradictions completely by accident. Childish curiosity can carry the power of a flamethrower when authority figures aren't prepared for it. But I think the most potent mental gear shift of my life was made not by the discovery of fallible authority figures, but by the discovery that my own eyes could lie to me. I saw a UFO. I was playing outside when I looked up and saw what was clearly a UFO heading straight towards me. It was broad daylight, the skies were sunny and clear. What I saw was a perfect silver saucer with flashing lights on top. I remember my heart racing in a combination of fear and excitement. I had read a lot of science fiction and knew that aliens could be dangerous or friendly, but either way this was an extraordinary moment for me. I froze on the spot, trying to decide between running indoors to get my mother and staying where I was for fear I might lose sight of it. I believe this small decision and its consequences affected my way of thinking for life. I decided to stay put and watch the UFO's approach. If it landed, then I would go get my mother, but otherwise, I wasn't taking my eyes off it. I felt like my heart was going to thump out of my chest. The more I stared, the more certain I was that there was no mistake. This was definitely, absolutely, positively a UFO. It looked as if the aliens were heading straight to my house, flying very low. I wondered if they could see me standing there. I wondered if they would open fire or abduct me. I hoped they would stop by to chat and tell me amazing things and make friends with me. I hoped they would be like E.T. As I stood there, trembling with fear and excitement, imagining that I was on the threshold of what could possibly be the most important event in human history, right on my front lawn, something happened to the UFO. As I watched it coming closer, I realized that my perspective was off, and it wasn't flying as low as I thought, or in the direction I thought. It wasn't saucer-shaped either. When the airplane passed overhead, it became obvious that the saucer shape I had observed was due to the particular angle from which I was viewing it. In that moment, I recalled the optical illusion of the young woman and the old crone. When I first saw that illusion, I thought of it as a clever, fun picture. Until my UFO experience, I hadn't fully grasped that illusions like that reveal something about the fallibility of human eyes and brains. I was, of course, disappointed that my tremendous alien discovery was nothing more than an airplane. But it made me realize how easy it is to be wrong about something even when you feel completely certain about it. In the span of 60 seconds, I went from absolute certainty to humbled embarrassment in my own mind. Although no one was around to witness my mistake, I was very aware of the magnitude of the error I had made. I jumped to conclusions with insufficient data. Seeing is believing, but our eyes are fallible, and so are the conclusions drawn from the data they supply. I can't say I became a huge skeptic on the spot, but I did learn to slow down before drawing conclusions from insufficient information. The most important thing I learned is that certainty is uncertain if you haven't bothered to ascertain. I've sometimes wondered how different my experience would have been had I been more afraid than curious. In my split-second decision to stay put and watch, what if I had, instead, decided to run inside and get my mother? In the time it would have taken me to track her down and drag her outside to see the UFO, the airplane could easily have passed on by. I might have spent the rest of my life 100% certain that I had seen an alien spacecraft. I think it would have been very difficult, if not impossible, to dislodge my belief that I had seen a real UFO. Did I tell this story for the purpose of denying aliens and UFOs? No, not really. The fact that I didn't see a UFO doesn't mean no one has or no one will. I am extremely skeptical of claims of alien visitation, and always keep in mind the fallibility of human observation, but I'm prepared to be wrong if better evidence becomes available. However, the point of this story is to draw attention to the broader implications of human fallibility in every context. How often are we sure of something that is simply wrong? What tools can we use to minimize our fallibility? How can we justify certainty? These are not mysterious questions. They have good answers. Identifying all of the tools and methodologies at our disposal is beyond the scope of this video, but the first step is to become humble enough to admit ignorance. Those who confidently assert knowledge without adequate investigation are doomed to learn nothing. The intelligent seeker of knowledge says, "I don't know, but I'd like to find out." Curiosity trumps credulity. Certainty without ascertaining is putting the cart before the horse. In Plato's Apology, Socrates explains that his particular form of wisdom is the mere recognition that he is not wise. In a sense, this concept has been explored in modern psychological research. The Dunning-Kruger effect describes a phenomenon in which those with the least competence in various social and intellectual abilities report the greatest confidence in their own abilities. Conversely, those with measurably superior skills tend to underestimate their own abilities. Certainty is often a trait associated with the most ignorant and unskilled people. Doubt is the antithesis of certainty. Faith can accurately be described as certainty without ascertaining. Given the Judeo-Christian God's feelings on human pride, it's surprising how much arrogance is displayed by believers in their frequent proclamations that they know there is a God, and with 100% certainty they know that the God is their God. However, this particular crime of arrogance bothers me less than some others, because some believers will admit that faith has no basis in rationality. But one issue that has often struck me as unforgivably arrogant is the believer's smug inquiry into the origin of the universe. I recently saw a video featuring a few teenage boys discussing their conflicting viewpoints. One of the theist boys questioned the atheist boy about how the universe began, phrased in this case as, "how we got here." The atheist begins his response by saying, "Honestly, I don't know." The remarkable thing is that the Christian theist immediately laughs at this, covering his face with his palm, as if it's hilarious that the atheist admits to ignorance on a topic about which all human beings are ignorant. And this is the crux of the issue. Theists are certain and seem to lack any patience for investigation beyond authoritative dictate. I would happily salute any theists humble enough to reckon honestly with their own ignorance, if I ever had the pleasure of meeting any. If you are such a theist, please introduce yourself, and I will try to avoid the impulse to put you on display in a freak show. If you exist, you are certainly an aberration among believers. Some theists may argue that they do work to ascertain the truth of their claims. Their investigation simply takes place in the spiritual realm, they may argue. Their proofs revolve around the subjective feeling of God's presence in their lives. With few exceptions, I do not doubt that people truly feel what they say they feel. But if you are a theist who finds yourself certain of God's existence on these grounds, then that begs a very important question. If the evidence for God's existence is so obvious on the grounds that you feel His presence within yourself and the world, what possible purpose could religion serve? If it is so obviously true, why do adults work hard to make sure their children are brought up to believe? If authoritative dictate is not your reason for believing, do you think you would have invented the concept of God yourself in a world without religion? If no one had ever told you there was a God, and there were no books to tell you, would you still believe? If not, how can you be sure that authoritative dictate isn't what fuels your belief? And if your answer is yes, that you would have discovered the reality of God even in a world without religion, then why do we need religion? And how do you explain the existence of non-believers if God's presence is so obvious? I invite theists to think carefully about their certainty and how they have ascertained their beliefs. Here are some final questions and a challenge for both believers and non-believers. How often have you been certain of something without really investigating it? How high are your standards of investigation? What, for you, constitutes proof worthy of certainty? How much do you trust your own feelings as a means of ascertaining reality? How much do you trust your own eyes? For a fun and brief experiment, check out the linked video on selective attention to test your observational skills. Let me know how many basketballs you see passed by the people in white shirts and what you think of the experiment's implications. I'm the Vicious Square. Thanks for listening, and thanks for thinking.